Today we're going to do an investigation looking at rational functions. Before we do that, we need to review a couple ideas first. So these are prerequisite skills, or things that you should already know. The first thing is the definition of a function. So this goes back to first semester. The definition of a function is for every blank, there's exactly one blank, and that is input-output. For every input, there's exactly one output. Next thing you should know is, what is the shape of this function? Y equals x squared. We studied this extensively. You should know that it is a U-shaped graph, quadratic, parabola. How is this function y equals x minus 3 squared plus 5 shifted from the parent function y equals x squared? Again, you should be very familiar with this. The minus 3 in parentheses means right 3, and the plus 5 means up 5. How is this function x plus 1 squared minus 19 shifted from the parent function y equals x squared? In the parentheses, the plus 1 means left 1, and the minus 19 means down 19, so that would be D. Let's look at equations of lines. What is the equation of the pink line? Well, it's y equals, and here the y-intercept is 2 and the slope is 0. So whenever it's a horizontal line, it's a y equals line because it gives you the y-intercept and it has no slope. What about if it's, okay, you try this one. Again, it is a horizontal line. The y-intercept is negative 3 and the slope is 0. So that is the equation of the line y equals negative 3. Okay, now we get to a vertical line. So this one right here does not have a y-intercept, so it cannot be B. It is A, x equals negative 2, and the reason is all along this point, any point on here, the x value is negative 2. So if it's a vertical, it's x equals, even though you usually think of the y-axis as vertical, if it's the line, it's x equals. Next question, we've reviewed lowest common denominator before. What's the lowest common denominator of each set of fractions? 3 and 5. What do 3 and 5 both go into? They both go into 15. Again, if you don't know, you can stack them. The 3 and the 5, if you stack them, 3 times 5 is 15. Or we would say we wouldn't be able to stack these, so we'd have 3 and the 5. 3 times 5 is 15. Lowest common denominator. How about this? 3x and 4x. Again, if you stack them, we have 3x. We have 4x, so it would be 3 times x times 4, which would be 12x, would be the lowest common denominator. 2 and 4, again, here are the factors, so if you stack them, the lowest common denominator would be 4. They both go into 4. What x and x squared? Well, this factors to x times x. So this would be an x times x times x. And we can see that the lowest common denominator is x squared. They both go into x squared. All right, so those are things that we've already looked at this unit or in previous units. In class today, we're going to do an investigation graphing a rational function. Here's the investigation. And in class, we're going to use spaghetti noodles. We're going to use a little cup on a string, some tape. What we're going to do is we're going to tape noodles of various lengths to the table, or to a book we'll actually use, and we're going to count how many, we're going to use pennies, you can put in the cup before it breaks. So the variables here are, we're going to have an independent variable, and the independent variable that we're going to change is the length of the noodle. So we're going to change that up, measure it, record it, and then we're going to count how many pennies we can put in the cup before the noodle breaks. So the dependent variable is the mass, or the amount of pennies you can put in the cup before the noodles break. Predict what the graph of this data will look like. In other words, as you decrease the length of the noodle, will the cup be able to hold more or less weight? Sketch a prediction of your graph below. Okay, so again, if we have our independent, dependent variable, we have our graph here. So we have independent is the length of the noodle, and dependent will be the mass, how much it can hold. So I want you to sketch as the length of the noodle increases, what is happening to the mass, how many pennies can it hold. And this is the experiment that we'll do in class. You'll fill out the table, you're going to graph it, and then you're going to fill this out. Describe the relationship of the variables. As the length of the noodle increases, the amount of pennies it can hold, or the mass, and you're going to figure out this decreases. So the longer the noodle, the fewer pennies it can hold. This is called an inverse function. As one gets bigger, the other gets smaller. The parent function for an inverse function is f of x equals 1 over x, which is the simplest rational function. Below is just one part of the graph, or f of x equals 1 over x. Write your equation of the shifted function. All right, so here's what it looks like. Can you write your equation of your shifted function? And then your assignment will be the Prerequisite Skills worksheet.